discussion. We expect to have a draft of this manifesto in September to share again with you all and gather your contributions. So I don't know if Ezio has already checked in. If not, it was supposed.
He's coming. Yeah, there is a problem with the time zones. So yeah, I reached him and he's joining us.
Okay, because it was precisely, I want to open these conversations with Ezio because it was the social innovation for the planet topic that Ezio launched to all of us. And so you are suggesting that we just wait some seconds, Carla?
Yeah. Just there was a time zone problem. So he was waiting, thinking that it was later, but he's connecting. You can wait a little bit if you can. It will be a little bit late for us, but I think that's worth it, right?
Yeah, I think open a DESIS conversation without the president. It's a pity, so I think it's worth to wait for Ezio. If you are guaranteed that he's coming.
He's coming. No, I'm very happy to see you all, guys. Yay, how are you? So nice. Hi, Virgie. Hi, Lisa. Hi, Joon. Oh.
Hi, Carla.
So nice to see you all. You can take this time to see each other and see how we're doing. Whoa. Hi, Spyros. No, the others have the camera closed, so.
Hi, Carla.
Yes, sometimes we connect with people, right? Send mails all the time from the coordination, but we don't see the faces. So I'm so happy to see you all, guys. And some of you I have never seen before. So it's amazing. Hi. So you look great. You look great. Hi, Fang. How are you?
Hi, Carla.
It should be nice to have in there some moments just to look each other, right? To take some beer together, wine. We are always working.
When you don't have the Cumulus conference where we can meet sometimes together, it's good to have this tool.
Yeah, the connection as community. For example, I have never seen Sebastian before. How are you, Sebastian? Hi. Because we manage the affiliations, so we know a lot of people, but not. Yeah. Very welcome here. Nice to see you. And I think also you have never seen me before, I think. So, hi. Sorry. Just to I'm a little bit worried, Teresa, with our because it will take longer than we expect if we wait so much.
So it was supposed after Ezio, it was supposed to be me talking.
Yeah.
So I can start. Yeah.
We could start, and because otherwise it can be so late. So we start in a certain point, we stop, because many of the things we have, because we are based on the text we have sent to the conversations, right? So we more or less have, we can also, do you have the link? So we have the text, oops, something's happening. Hi, oh yeah, ciao Ezio.
He's probably checking where is the link for the Zoom meeting. So Carla, the news are?
No, because there is a need to register, but he thought that he was already registered. So now he's coming.
So let's wait, right?
Yeah, yes, he's on the doors, like knocking. Knocking doors. It's just the time to fill the form and enter.
He always likes to be the star, so he arrives
Not really. Not really.
late.
It was really a problem of time zone. He thought that will be later. So I don't know, maybe because time zones, I don't know. It's never happened before, so. Oh.
He just sent it.
Okay, Ezio has arrived.
Sorry.
Hi, Ezio. We were just waiting for you.
Oh my God. Sorry. I had some problem with the line. Okay, I'm here now.
Okay, so I have already explained a little bit our discussion, so I was giving the floor to you. So please, you can start to talk about your text for the DESIS conversation.
Yes. So first of all, sorry if I was a little bit late, but I had some little problem with my line, my computer. And of course, I'm so happy to imagine you, because I see only few of you now here, but I imagine many of you together. And you know very well, I think, why are we here? So we, some times ago, now already 1 year ago exactly, we started to think that it would be useful to rethink a little bit what are the bases of DESIS. Not necessary to change, or at least I think that we are not to change anything substantial. But of course, when we started DESIS was already, the beginning of the thoughts was already 15 years ago, maybe. And afterward, 10 years ago, it was consolidated. And so everything happened in a certain atmosphere, in a certain world that has certain priority. And we did our job during those longer period. And at a certain point last year, we said, but maybe given the different sensitivity that we had at that moment, we should in some way reshape what is to be DESIS, so the common denominator in between us. And so we launched this idea of the Conversation 2020 that was mainly launched with one main issue as a reference. The issue was the wave of social innovation in which we have been part, modestly, but we have been part of a wave of social innovation, started mainly on some social issue. And whatever happened, you know better than me. Nowadays, 1 year ago, we said maybe we have to imagine a second wave of social innovation in which the same attitude of the social innovation could be oriented more directly toward the environmental problems and environmental issue. And this has been the idea. So the idea is how we could recognize the beginning of this new story, so a social innovation more directly related to environmental issue, and at the same time, what could be our role as a DESIS, given what we felt at that moment as the urgency. You remember, we was in the middle of the Friday for the Future, the other kind of movement that was bringing on the newspaper and everywhere the environmental issue. And this has been the story, and many of you, the one that we invited today to talk, had presented some of their own thoughts. And afterward, it happened, this issue about the pandemic. And of course, now when we think, not only 1 year ago, but also 6 months ago, seems an age before, because something so big happened. And this in some way obliged us more than before to rethink what are the bases. So I wrote something that I don't want now to summarize, but for sure, at least this is my proposal, my suggestion to our thinking, is not so much to try to imagine how the future could be, because everything is so fluid that is very difficult or impossible to imagine how things will be in a while. But we can try to understand in what happened, and what happened has been really something very deep. I refer to it as a kind of huge social experiment as never has been before, to keep people at home, millions, hundreds of millions of people at home for a long period, distancing one with the other ones. So to try to understand what this huge social experiment will leave, what kind of a new driver for the good and for the bad. And for sure, there is, in my view, even though we have to be, in general, try to be optimistic, but for sure this crisis is mainly something that pushes people to be distanced by the other, separated, alone. And therefore, in some way, we have to fight even harder to do what has to be done to reconnect people, to reconnect the people with the places. At the same time, we have also seen some first element of social innovation in a kind of micro society, a macro sociability. So people find a way to get in touch with the one they are really very nearby to them. So there is this discussion about the value of being nearby, the value of having this kind of a proximity that in some way become, I think, one of the key words of the new wave of social innovation that we can imagine in this period. So rethinking how important it is to locate, to position our activity in the territory, in the place, and especially the value of proximity, even in a period of the social or physical distancing. And at the same time, a lot of people have been in some way gently pushed, not gently, not so gently, sorry, have been very strongly pushed to, given that they had to stay at home, to use more all the online services that are now available. And also this for the good and for the bad. It's nothing bad in using more digital services. But again, this could be a way to in some way, even more make fluid our society, destroyed some social link. So how we can use instead the opposite, to use this kind of life online that is much more now than before as a way to reconnect with the people in proximity. And finally, there is a different relationship with, let's call it to be simple, nature. And so in some way to abandon the kind of idea that the human being, the man and woman are the center of the universe, the anthropocentric attitude, and to recognize that we are facing an agency from nature that is very, very strong and we cannot control it. And so how to evolve our way of thinking in a non-anthropocentric way that is capable to have a dialogue with the other living and non-living entities that are part of our biosphere. So this is, I think, are what we have learned and what we can try to use in our social innovation activity and in our design for social innovation activity. And I think that this could in some way reshape. There is, in my view, nothing totally new. So the most of the activity, the most of the idea that emerged in the past 10 years are already in the right direction, but we have to fine tune it and to reorganize it, to introduce a new topic, especially the one related to our relationship with the other entities that share with us our planet. And yes, maybe this has been a little bit fast, but it's more or less the core idea that I have personally proposed to the discussion. And now I'm very curious and interested to listen to what you're going to say. Thank you.
Thanks, Ezio. It was on time, precisely. I will start keeping also the program, and I will start talking about my contribution. For those who have the opportunity to read, the title was Social Innovation and the Environmental Emergency, How Design Can Contribute in this Scenario. And when I was asked to write a text for the DESIS conversation based on the topic of social innovation for the planet, I did not have any doubts about the need to reorient, upgrade, or to encourage the activities of the DESIS labs in a more environmental friendly direction. As we all know, design for social innovation and design for sustainability, usually they walk hand in hand. And looking back to what I wrote, it still makes sense, and probably more sense after this pandemic we are living in. We are witnessing for many decades the planet giving signs of exhaustion in every shorter cycles, illustrated by global climate weirding, oceans of plastic that start to infiltrate the food chain, the loss of biodiversity, and so on. And almost 1 year ago, the Earth Overshoot Day arrived on 29 July, much sooner than expected. And every year the Overshoot Day arrives earlier. This year, probably things are going to be different as we have given the planet some time to rest and to breathe, but let's see. And fortunately, the need for an economic recovery will probably cancel this forced slowdown. And that is why design should be more active and lead the way as soon as possible, showing innovative and alternative solutions for this economic recovery without damaging even more the planet, with fair trade and social benefits for all. There are signals that show that collectively is possible not only to fix the environmental problems, but to regenerate the planet. Even if some actions are not more of a palliative, tackling the results and not the underlying causes, they highlight a collective desire to address and solve it, like these self-organized actions to clean beaches, plant trees, etc. And they stem also from the realization that political leaders are failing to deliver the necessary change with the required speed. If we take a closer look at some cases of social innovation developed by DESIS labs and other communities, we can see they have a positive and enduring side effects, and even a regenerative principle at its core, mainly in urban areas. In other cases, for instance, like the city of Helsinki, that is piloting an initiative which is a sustainable city guide to tackle the climate change with the collaboration of all citizens. Because cities are responsible for a high percentage of natural resources consumption, and I would like to challenge design community to design systems that are based on social innovations for a regenerative city in order to innovate not only with quick fixings, but mainly in creating collaboratively regenerative and renewed solutions for urban life based in a circular flow of local and natural resources. And 12 years ago, during my PhD research, I came up with the concept of a collaborative city that was based on the principle of collaboration between citizens as elements who are active producers and users of the city structure and co-involved in the creation of a more sustainable and egalitarian society. This collaborative city was, at the time, for me, a place where people interact and enact, creating a symbiosis of activities that promote sustainable lifestyles and active citizenship, social inclusion, cultural diversity, and new economic models. It is based in a complex interplay of top-down, bottom-up, and peer-to-peer interactions. Looking back to that concept, I think that today cities need not only collaboration, but they need also regeneration. And regenerate and repair actions should happen in tandem. On one hand, designers must work to diminish the ecological footprint in production, clean up the excess of consumption, recycle, reuse, and repair instead of producing new future waste, and use finite natural resources wisely. And on the other hand, they must support and design suitable process to assist existing groups of self-organized citizens in their efforts to save and regenerate our common home. So to conclude, I think that design community, and particularly all DESIS Lab around the world, must pull together and embrace a leadership role, both through knowledge and practice, to find solutions that can help regenerate the planet, caring and preserving nature, and respecting also all forms of life. So, hope I kept up my time. And And now I welcome Lisa McEwen from DESIS Lab in New Zealand. It is very late, so thanks, Lisa, for being with us. I will give the floor to you.
Thank you. It's lovely to be here and to be speaking with you all and to see you all again. I wasn't actually part, our DESIS lab is very small. It consists of predominantly me and a group of students that come through every year. I've been away from campus for a year and had just returned this year when all of this started happening and the developments in the world. But we are looking at growing it in the next year or so. But so I hadn't been particularly thinking around the conversations that you have been discussing just before me. However, my contribution tonight is about a project that we started about 4 weeks before New Zealand went into quite a sudden lockdown, just based on knowledge of what was happening overseas. So every year with my group of about 20 to 30 students, we do a project on the outskirts of Auckland City. Auckland is a very broadly spread city of 2 million people, and it's multicultural, and we would like to think, particularly, I guess, the white people of Auckland would like to think that we get along really well, but I guess that's from our position of privilege. And so what we do is I take the students out to a different campus and they do a co-design project with communities out there looking at various social and environmental issues. So the projects could be around transport, could be around food, could be around job creation and that sort of thing. So quite a broad range. This year we were looking at an impending garden, and I know all of the DESIS labs have done community gardens, and I wasn't particularly wanting to do one again, but we happened to work in with the local council and quite a radical arm of the council that are keen to do. They do a lot of design thinking and they're keen to do a lot of co-design. So we worked with this council organisation called the Southern Initiative to work in the South Auckland community, which is it's a much more multiracial community and lower socioeconomic. So we take the students from a place of comfort and the location of the university close to their homes, and we put them out of their comfort zone to go and work with lower socioeconomic groups. The group I was working with were multicultural, but not of a Pacific Island descent, which is what this community that we were working in was. And we worked on a project. It was based around a community garden, but there was a thrust about Indigenous food knowledge and food sovereignty and also food security. So this was new. It's not unusual for us as DESIS lab coordinators to understand this sort of material, but for the students it was quite new. But the thing that arose for me out of doing this project, so we were 4 weeks in and had really just launched it when we had to suddenly go into lockdown and everything was done online. So that prevented us from actually working with the community. Excuse me, I'm going to turn that off. Apologies. That prevented us working with the community itself. And so the students had to do co-design sessions online with industry partners. So it was the Auckland City Council, it was teachers at the local school, it was managers at the District Health Board that owned the land that the garden was going to be built on. It was someone who had started working on the seedlings project and some of the teachers from the school. And what I found most interesting out of it, the students did learn. There was one particularly good group that took the environmental challenge really well, and they sort of streamed ahead, and that was great. But I think the learning is often best when you look at what problems arise. And the problem for me that arose was that probably about 15 students got quite stuck on this idea that the lower socioeconomic community required empowerment and required help, and that they had obesity issues and that they were making bad choices. And so they started researching how to get behavioral change. And so there was quite a a lack of cultural understanding, a lack of understanding about the lack of privilege, a lack of understanding about the systemic issues and I guess systemic racism that actually still exists, even though we think in our country it's not a big issue. In fact, it does exist, and so it was really important for those students to stop talking about this group of people as other and needing us to fix them, and that's of course what co-design is not about. So that was probably the biggest take home for me in this. I think in terms of the whole situation with the environment and COVID-19, I think for me, there's almost been, it's a tragic situation. We haven't been hit by it very badly in New Zealand at all, as you probably know. We only had 22 deaths in all, and we have all but eradicated COVID-19. But so from a place of not having been impacted badly, one of the benefits I can see of something tragic like this happening is that I think it's a wake-up call for us all, and it's almost like a perfect storm is happening. We're learning about pandemics coming at the same time as peak oil, and all of the things that probably our community as designers and DESIS practitioners have known need to happen and need to change. I think those conversations are more ripe to happen now with people who haven't been having those conversations. So I think that seeing what happened with the planet in terms of environmental shifts and things like that, I think that we're getting more conversations happening and more people open to that. So I'm seeing you looking. I'm probably out of time. My 5 minutes.
Thank you, Lisa, so much. I will give now the word to Joon Sang Baek from Yonsei University DESIS Lab in South Korea. Joon, please.
Nice to see you, everyone. The importance of assessing the short-term and long-term influences of design projects cannot be exaggerated. The question is, how can it be done better than it is now? This question is connected to Ezio's proposal on social innovation for the planet. If designers cannot demonstrate the impact of design interventions on the planet and the society, how can they tell if design makes a return on investment as it promises? If they cannot promise the return, how can they convince their clients? Coming back to the question of how to assess the influence of design projects better, I'd like to propose that we should actively incorporate Sustainable Development Goals, SDGs, into design activities. Consisting of 17 goals, 169 targets, and 244 indicators, United Nations SDGs are by far, I quote, the best plan to promote prosperity while protecting the environment, quote end. Many nations and cities have also developed a local version of SDGs for application to policymaking, implementation, and assessment. For instance, Seoul developed the local SDGs in 2015 and has been implementing 328 associated projects. What is interesting is that a significant number of these goals can be adopted as the goals and assessment criteria for design projects. For the past couple of years, I've been experimenting on incorporating SDGs into student design projects at Yonsei University. For instance, 2 girls designed a serious game that guides female students to choose their career path in science, technologies, engineering, and mathematics. In response to the SDG target 5.b, enhance the use of enabling technology, in particular information and communication technology, to promote the empowerment of women. I'd like to share with you 3 findings from my experiment with SDGs and design. SDGs were useful for defining the metrics to evaluate the long-term impact of design interventions. We as designers are used to assessing our outputs or outcomes, but not so much the long-term impacts. This is because assessing social impact involves a highly laborious process and is more often than not included in the design brief. SDGs provide a set of indicators to meet by 2030. Number 2, SDGs could also be used as a guidance to build design strategies. Students refer to SDGs during the ideation and revisited them during the idea development repeatedly to make sure that their ideas are aligned with the goals. If they were not aligned, students went back to redefine the problems. This alignment of SDGs and design concepts allowed them to stay on the path. Number 3, we realized that scaling up is much more important than we thought. Without scaling up, design projects have almost no impact at the municipal or national level that SDGs aim at. However, scaling up was not in the scope of these projects, and to be honest, not in any previous projects that I seriously addressed scaling up. At hindsight, this is probably because design projects tend to focus on the product service development and less on scaling up, which requires interdisciplinary efforts and organizational resources that designers don't possess. Integrating SDGs with design projects does not necessarily change what we have been practicing as design for social innovation, but makes it more legitimate, measurable, and convincing. Besides, it can broaden the perspective of designers with a comprehensive set of opportunities and guidelines. Design activities for SDGs are already underway, such as the Accelerating the SDG projects by the Center for Sustainable Urban Institute in Columbia University and Global Goal Jams. And lastly, I'd like to have a reflection in the light of the COVID-19 pandemic. COVID-19 touches upon several targets of SDG 3, good health and well-being. But from a broader perspective, it also connects to many other different SDGs, such as reduced inequalities, sustainable cities and communities, responsible consumption and production, climate action, and life on land, as this pandemic is associated with multiple environmental and social issues, such as the climate crisis, humanity's invasion of the natural habitat, and digital divide. So thank you for listening.
Thank you, Joon, for keeping the time. And now we'll give the floor to Miaosen from Yangnan DESIS Lab in China. Miaosen, please.
Hello, thank you, Teresa. Hello, everybody. Can I share my screen? Yes, I can. So, let me see who can. Sorry, maybe I can put on the.
You can share your screen if you want. Down, you can share.
But it tells me I need to configure something.
What do you need?
Try again. We need to accept and give. You can try again, Miaosen.
Let me see. Oh, sorry, forget it, because I need to jump out if I reconfigure. Anyway, I would like to contribute to this conversation in a more specific perspective. One of the keywords I mentioned to the Teresa, one is the DESIS perspective. This was written in my contribution text before, and at the end of that piece of the writing, I was talking about try to redefine, reshape the relationship between the human nature, talking about the sustainable, environmental and ecological sustainability. So from that, I propose the second my key words is about the China philosopher. And probably more or less you know about Chinese culture and some of the philosophy. I think we have the rich contents and implications in the ecological civilization. As you know, we in the Chinese culture, we talk about the unity of the human and the universe. The human and nature are not two, but they are the one. They are the one body. So as a one body, entire unity, in this opinion, it's not we will for sure it's not user-centered or human-centered. Is not reasonable if we regard human and nature and the universe as one and not separated. Instead, to be sustainable, we in our Chinese philosophy we can say the universe or nature-oriented. What the human society or everybody do, if we follow the nature or follow the universe, then it can be more healthy and sustainable. So the point is how to understand the universe, how to understand the nature. In this point, it's crucial that to understand the normality of nature. So what's the normality of the universe? I know it's difficult to explain, but I will try. If we cannot understand the normality of the nature, we do not understand the future of the sustainable vision, the vision of the sustainable future. So in the Chinese philosophy, it told us very early what's the normality, what's the healthy situation of universe and of the nature. So once we understand the normality of the nature, we will understand the normality of our human society and of our individual. I think that's very profound foundation to talk about the sustainable vision of our common future. So somehow I hope that in next decades, the Chinese experiences may bring some value for the international society in the ecological civilization. Thank you, that's it.
Thank you, Miaosen. We will have a pre-recorded contribution from Nicola Morelli from Aalborg Thesis Lab in Denmark. He couldn't be present today, so he pre-recorded his intervention. Let's see it.
Good afternoon. Sorry for not being able to participate in person. I have other commitment, unfortunately, for today. For your information, this is my face, and from now on, you will see my slides. I will start from the blog post I wrote for DESIS in January 2020, and the title was "Are We Thinking Radically Enough?" There was a sort of unspoken subtitle that is, "Are we thinking radically enough before something radical drops on our head?" And actually, I could not foresee at that time that only 1 month later, something radical did drop on our heads. So perhaps what I wrote in January does not make too much sense. For those who haven't read the blog, I was talking about a study of the Dutch Ministry of Environment, which was claiming in 1992 that a 95% reduction in respect to the values of 1990 was necessary in the use of resources. So by 2040, we have to reduce not by 5%, but by 95%. That means a factor 20 reduction. There was a big discussion, for those who remember, that between factor 10, factor 20 reduction at the end of last century. And it was also clear that technology could not go beyond a 20-30% reduction, and the rest had to be done some societal change. We needed some radical societal change. That's why Manzini was discussing with a group of students whether we are thinking radically enough. But at that time, talking about radical solutions were a bit too disproportionate in respect to the common perception of the environmental crisis. There was an environmental crisis, but it was not perceived to be so serious. 30 years later, 6 months ago, I was writing this blog post, and several crises became very evident. Greta Thunberg made it evident how the environmental crisis is actually compromising the use of resources for future generation. But also social and political crises became so clear that basically there were big cracks in the socio-technical infrastructure, and we could see now some radical solutions through the system. Some people were already looking at those radical solutions and trying to explore them. And just 1 month later, the bug came, and the cracks became so big, the building fell apart. So now the radical change is clearly needed, but it's not only needed, it is happening whether we want it or not. We are in a big mess now, and many people are still hoping that we can come back to the normal, where the normal is the way we were living before. Other people are actually imagining a new normal, but so a normal in which some aspects that are not necessarily the most positive ones are possibly overstressed. And for instance, a nomadic society in which people are only communicating online, work relationships that are scattered or more sporadic, or a relative increase of individual transport, which does not necessarily means more cars. It could be different organization of car property. But the thing is, in this change that is happening, does it make sense to talk about thinking radically? What is the sense of thinking radically after this? My blog was ending with some questions, whether those changes that we were looking at that time 6 months ago were radical enough. Now that something radically is actually happening, the questions become, what is the sense? What can we do to search for some other normal that is more desirable and can be amplified? Perhaps the sense of our exploration could come from looking at what we were thinking before 6 months ago and trying to understand whether it can be validated under the new paradigms. We were looking at communities, local aggregation, local production. Are those ideas still valid in the new paradigm? Another possibility is observing the horizontal changes, the changes that citizens are triggering or developing or implementing, and explore the possibility for either a diffusion of those changes, an horizontal diffusion, or a vertical scalability, so an institutionalization of those changes, if those changes are, of course, desirable. And finally, another way of looking at and supporting radical thinking could simply be in proposing scenarios, because at this moment, the brains of many people are very open to new changes, but the difficulty is probably to understand or to find consistent aggregation that put together many different elements of changes. So my questions are still open, but I try to give my 2 cents of ideas about possible exploration of where we can go. And sorry again for not being with you, and please feel to contact me at the address that you can see here. Good afternoon. Sorry.
Well, now I would like to welcome Davide Fassi from Polimi DESIS Lab in Italy. David, the floor is yours.
Ciao Teresa, hello to everyone. I just wrote this contribution to this conversation before the pandemic. I think it was kind of October, November last year. And I was thinking about and writing about the role of sustainability in the education and the role of community in that. And I was surprised that, again, as some of you already told, that after a while that would be done a very big issue for the pandemic and so on. Well, what I wrote is that in the last decades, we put the tag of sustainability in most of the things that we are doing. And you can see from courses, journal papers, webinar, seminar, and whatever. And so sometimes, I mean, we are kind of taking for granted. And nowadays, even in the education, it's not so easy to find this sustainable tag, because everything you're doing in the education is including sustainability as an input, as an approach, as a must-have in what you are doing. Well, what I noticed in my experience as researchers, as professor, and dealing a lot with local communities, that from one side, community is crucial for lots of reasons. I'm talking in a minute. But from the other side, not always the community is able really to recognize the value of sustainability of the projects that we are doing. And I give an example. In the last couple of years, we are dealing a lot with the concept of living streets. So give back the streets to people, and put out the cars, try to improve the quality of public space, and so on. So for us, I mean, it's pretty obvious that the quality of life, the quality of space is improving, is better, the environment could benefit about that. But you know, there are lots of people, not few, lots of people that when you take a car out of a parking and you not leave them the space to park their car, that is the problem. So they don't really care about all the other benefits that that intervention could do. So I think that it's pretty basic as a discourse, but it can imply a lot of different consequences. Because if you're not able to act at the very local side, I mean, act as an educator in transferring and in giving information on local communities about the benefit, the effect of these kind of projects that we are doing, the risk is that they are useless. So in that article, I was telling that, yes, local communities are crucial because they are able to organize themselves, doing things very, very acupunctural in very precise places. And at the same time, they are able to create some condition to replicate and duplicate projects, and sometimes even to scale up. And as DESIS network, as labs of DESIS, and we are many of them, so we are more than 50, and most of us are really working back to back with local communities. So we have a great potential to act with them and to create awareness about some topics like sustainability in our everyday teaching and research activities, because we can find some proactive communities that are able even to spread the word. So the final concept of the article that I wrote was this one. I mean, try to push more working on local communities, try to transfer the knowledge, and not only educate, but transfer the knowledge. So give them the information about the project we are doing and why we are doing those, and we are having those choices in what we are doing, because they have a great potential. Even if they are small, they could have great ideas to be spread around cities and more. Thank you.
Thank you, David. Next, we will have the contribution from Louise and Pierre of the Emily Carr DESIS Lab in Canada, because in Canada it's really very early. Louise will try to join us later in the conversation, but in the meantime, she pre-recorded her intervention also. So let's hear it.
Hi, good morning or good afternoon, wherever it is in your part of the world. My name is Louise St. Pierre, and it's 5 a.m. over here in Vancouver, so this talk is pre-recorded. And what I will do is just elaborate a bit on my paper for the DESIS 2020 conversations, which was called Social Innovation and Biodiversity, or the Merit of Salamanders. And to begin, I'd like to acknowledge that I live and work on the unceded ancestral territories of the Musqueam, Tsleil-Waututh, and Squamish peoples, and also that many other plant, animal, and mineral beings have long shared this territory as well. The bear, crow, salmon, mountain, river, cedar tree, orca whale, and so on. At the DESIS Lab at Emily Carr for many years now, we have been asking, how do our research methods change if we are actively engaging in relationships with more than humans? And another way to frame this question is, can our worldview of who is social, in terms of like the DESIS context of social innovation, how can that become more inclusive of sociability with other than human beings? I take a story here from Robin Wall Kimmerer from her book, Braiding Sweetgrass, and I'm going to read it to you almost directly. She says, it's about her and her daughters helping salamanders cross the roads on rainy spring nights. She says, "The first warm rain of spring, a soaking rain, sets the forest floor to rustling and stirring. En masse, the salamanders rise from the hidden places, blink at the open air, and start on their way. Salamanders move when darkness protects them from predators and rain keeps their skin moist. The forested slopes curve around the pond, funneling amphibians from the woods of the entire watershed straight to the water. But their route is interrupted by a road that snakes through the hollow. The road is a free-for-all: cars, salamanders, frogs, and all manner of amphibians. The frogs can move quickly, the salamanders generally can't. So Robin and her daughters have their flashlights, and they're out there, and when they hear a car coming, they help the salamanders move across the road." Now, what interests me about this story is that this is potentially a point of contact for humans and another species. The salamanders are not very attractive to us, admittedly, but the designers that I speak with about this kind of a situation generally point me to responses like designing a culvert that would go under the road, or designing a roadway that's elevated so that both humans and salamanders can proceed without encountering each other. This has been, I think, what I've known design as for most of my career, the practice of creating efficient environments for people to move as quickly and effectively as they want or need to. And this renders any contact between us and other species practically invisible. So I'm proposing in this paper that the DESIS approach to doing this would be to create relationships between people and salamanders. I wondered, maybe there would be a shepherd or a crossing guard, or perhaps a salamander festival with warm cider offered to drivers who are willing to stop, pause, and drive very carefully across the road. Maybe there would be evening neighborhood parties, and a local cafe would sponsor the picnic dinner, and et cetera, and so on. You know that we do know how to do this in DESIS. We do know how to create opportunities for us to learn about each other and to learn about other species. And the criticality of this is it's multi-layered. One is that in order for us to really start to understand the world we live in, we need to understand all of the members, the participants, and the beings within this world. understanding and fostering the vitality of all life forms is essential to the ongoingness of this planet, to ongoing of our ecosystems. And 3, that there's something very important about relearning our human place and also our human capacity to extend our knowing of ourself beyond our physical selves and into engagement with all manner of plant, animal, and mineral species that inhabit or share this world with us. Thank you. Thank you for listening. Have a good day.
Perfect. We are catching the time. Now I would like to welcome Virginia Tassinari, also from Polimi DESIS Lab in Italy. Virginia, please.
Hi, can you hear me? Yes, perfect.
Yes.
Okay,
yes.
Thank you, Teresa. I'll try to be very, very quick because, of course, a lot of things I've been hearing today, and probably I think the next contributions touches about a lot of things that I'm working at this very moment on. So it's very challenging for me to keep it in the 5 minutes, but I'll try to do that. So basically, you probably are aware of the fact that we started to work specifically on this issue also within the DESIS Philosophy Talks. And I think when I wrote this small contribution for the manifesto, it was really like a sort of preparatory text for this new series of philosophy talks. The first one was in February at Politecnico, and I organized it with Ezio. So basically, it's really like a conversation, an ongoing conversation between the two of us, but also involving other colleagues like Annalinda Di Rosa, for instance, in Politecnico, and Lisbeth Oebrechts, for instance, from Who Hustled, and so on. And the second conversation we had, it was in PDC, Participatory Design Conference, a few weeks ago. And basically what we did, we started really like by looking at the philosophy of Bruno Latour, most of all, and Maria Puig de la Bella Casa, trying to understand what does it mean really to acknowledge this radical interdependency between different kind of agencies, and to acknowledge this as a basis for post-anthropocentric design. We hired this metaphor from Bruno Latour from his book Down to Earth, in which he says that we need to land back on Earth. We need to acknowledge the fact that we are just terrestrials among others, and it's not that we have a bigger value than others because we interdepend with others. So we cannot imagine that we are disconnected from the others. But actually, this is the way in which we have been seeing ourselves for a long time. And I think even within my own project in the past, I've been working a lot on acknowledging like the interconnectedness between private and public interests, for instance. And so wondering how could I, in my participatory design practices, enhance those awareness that you cannot look at individual interests without looking at the interest of other people. But in a sense, I also was not, really being aware of how important it is to enlarge this discourse and include also the interest of other agencies, for instance, of non-human natural agents, for instance, plants, air, water, and so forth. So basically, in a nutshell, I think it's a challenge for us now, for us designers, to map which are all those interests that connect us to other agents that are not human, and how we interdepend really in the specific context in which we are. So Bruno Latour would say in the specific soil or in the specific critical zone from which we work. So of course, this is a kind of knowledge that it's very embodied. It's a kind of knowledge that needs to be situated, as Donna Haraway would say. And this makes it more complex. So it's not that we can just define one way for design to work on the level of this radical interdependency, but there are many different ways in which this can be practiced. So how can we map those interests or matters of concern, as Latour would say, of matters of care, as de la Bella Casa would say, and how we can take them into account when we design. Also, one step that Latour, I think, but also De La Bella Casa help us to do is to acknowledge that this changes also our perception of politics. So if we take these agencies into account, we don't look at the politics that only take human interest into account, but human interest in the interrelationship with others' interest. So it's a way to reframe also politics in a terrestrial way, as Latour would say, or as altered biopolitics, as De La Bella Casa says, or as cosmopolitics, as Isabel Stenger said, and so forth and so forth. And I think if we believe that we as designers have a sort of political responsibility and our design project have a political agencies, then I think we need to take it also seriously, how to reframe the political agency of our projects, which is a political, cosmopolitical meaning and value that our projects are producing, which are the kind of practice in which this cosmopolitical agency can be embodied, can be expressed, can be researched. And of course, because it has to do with a lot of different contexts, we cannot just look from a Western perspective or from my soil here now in Belgium or Ezio's soil in Bucine, but we need really to look from the many different points of view. And so that's why the second philosophy talk was developed in back-to-back together with also Arturo Escobar, trying to understand how to look at this from a pluriversal point of view. So which are the many different ways, the many different pluriversal ways in which we can practice this design for radical interdependency. And of course, I don't have an answer to that. There are many, many different answers. What I'm doing myself is trying to research it within my own research project now in the DESIS lab in the neighborhood of Nolo, together with Davide Fassi and the other colleagues of the DESIS lab. But I think there's not one right way to do it, but we just need to create a dialogue in which we confront the different ways in which we do it, and we enrich our thinking by means of those dialogues. So I hope we will continue this discussion also within the DESIS philosophy talk, and I invite the ones of you that are interested to keep in contact with us. Okay, I hope I was quick enough.
You were perfect. Now I will give the floor to Halitza from DESIS Knust Lab in Ghana. Halitza.
Thank you very much, and it's great to be here. And I'm also sharing my screen. Yeah. Okay. I hope it's visible on your side.
Yes,
okay,
it is.
So it's great to be here and speaking about design in Africa and liberating structures for social innovation and sustainability. In fact, it was very great to be part of this conversation when we saw the invitation, quite a tight time, but we tried to stay resilient. So design in Africa is normally sometimes seen as this, and at times too, we also perceive it like that. And sometimes we very coexist in nature, but with a lot of development and industrialization, it seems that there's beginning to be very little attention being paid to the environment and also the planet. So the question has been about how do we look at designing for social innovation and sustainability within our context where there is no, like as all the earlier presenters have said, Virginia saying that humans as agents also with nature, how do we reactivate these kind of relationships and enable it so that we can have a more sustainable environment and also a planet where we can be more useful. Then we decided in our context from KNUST, and as David Fassi was talking about integrating it into education, we began exploring, and little did we know that we'll be faced also with a pandemic that will actually push us to really look at what we've been discussing for many years now, since we started interacting with Ezio, Carla, and the DESIS team. So we looked around to see how we can integrate sustainability into our teaching practice. And these were the various models that we look at. And at the moment, we are busy restructuring our curriculum on the postgraduate level so that it becomes an integral part of our teaching and learning. So we also look at, these are some of the cases that we were looking at, liberating the structures so that more and more people can participate, not only from the community, but also from the university. So this is a project on saving the endangered frogs on the campus, because it's a garden city, but because of the human activities, the wildlife is becoming a little bit extinct. But until now that we went into lockdown, even if you can hear from the ambience, you can hear a lot of birds actually participating to let us know that they are also here as part of the planet. So this is also another project that is ongoing in an area called Swami Magazine. And in this area, we normally see that a lot of the cars and other things that are shipped from other places end up here and then they recycle it. And this is also another area called Agugloshi, where all the computers from other countries end up. And it's also one of the biggest landfills in the world. And so looking at bridging the gaps, we were thinking about, now do we also think about design that matters now? Because now we are thinking about living, and that's the most important thing now. So do we design better with less, or how do we view it? So we continue to liberate structures from being one entity and sharing information to a group, or now we begin to look at it from many to many people so that we can share the information as much as we can, as David has also said. So we also decided to start looking at design strategies and policies so that we can become very political with our ideas on how we can really make an impact with design in community. And of course, as much as we liberate the structures, more of the community people can also participate. So on social innovation, we say that one head in our African proverb does not exchange information. So you can see in the symbol two symbols working together. So you need me, I need you. That's what this symbol represents in our context. So thank you very much, gracias. And I hope that you enjoy the presentation. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Khalitsa, also to keeping up the time. I will now present a pre-recorded contribution also from Anna Meroni from Polimi DESIS Lab in Italy. She couldn't be present today, so let's see her presentation.
Ciao. Ciao a tutti. This is my contribution to the DESIS conversations. Well, I think it's a very instructive experiment to look at humankind's actions as a progressive effort towards civilization in a kind of trial and error journey. Not all actions, of course, but those aiming at increase our capability to live together and, in a way, sharing a narrative of the world. Of the most powerful drive toward this objective, so civilization, because it implies the creation of a vision for the future, which are then embodied and manifested into solutions, and so products and services. The more our world become populated, dense, diverse, and also fragile, as we see for this pandemic, the faster is the transformation of the principles and the values that inform our life together. These values and principles are continuously setting new levels of quality and of acceptance for our cohabitation in this planet. And so what seems to be normal until a few decades ago might look now completely unacceptable, barbarian or rude. Innovation is definitely part of this process, and in particular social innovation that is about the change of behaviors of people with regards to beliefs, values and principles is definitely something very concerned with civilization. we seek new behaviors when we feel that the old ones no longer fit with our need for what we wish to see in the planet and for our fulfilling presence in our community. It seems that today more and more people are aware that there is no civilization without sustainability, or better, that sustainability is the only possible narrative for our contemporary civilization. For these people, a big part of the solution which are today available on this planet and the rationale that underpins this solution are no more adequate to their sentiment. So the question is, how can we, as designers, diffuse the urgency for a rational and emotional move towards sustainability as a matter of civilization? Well, designing sustainable solutions is definitely a way to do it, but I think we can do something more or different today. And it has to do with activating and conducting conversations about the future. When we conduct these kind of conversations with a non-designer, we use the term co-design. And it's true, it is about envisioning different possibilities for the future that might or might not come through as such. But anyway, they are a way to collectively think about the future and to get aware about the present. Designing together pushes us thinking in a more pragmatic way and seeing also the absurdity of many of our behaviors. Time ago, I started to use the expression community-centered design to refer to design approach and skill of making emerge vision in a creative way by combining the different interests, perspectives and views of different people and stakeholders. Today, I believe that the power of this approach goes beyond the actual effectiveness in producing solutions, but it really relies on the fact that it can activate creative and engaging conversation about the future and the present time. This is something actually happening more and more at a massive scale. Let's think about, for instance, the efforts of many public administrations to involve citizens and different stakeholders to design the future of a city. Well, the talent of designers to orchestrate these conversations, to steer them, to let them flourish and materialize into solutions is a real unique mastery that no other expert actually has. So let's nurture this mastery. I see this conversation as very effective opportunities to raise our collective sensibility about the way we live, or we might live, so as to move up our perception of what we consider acceptable in a community perspective and finally civil. So there may be a way to grow the culture of living together, and I think a way design can contribute to civilization.
Even if Anna brought us a fantastic background, it was a problem with broadcasting the video. Now I will finish this round of presentation with DESIS coordinator Carla Cipolla from UFRJ Rio DESIS Lab in Brazil. Carla, the floor now is yours.
Hello everybody. Are you hearing me? Okay. Hi. I think that you have already covered a lot of things that I really appreciated, and I share many of the points you have raised. But as a coordinator, I have figured out the question. The beginning of our conversation, what was the question? What we are doing, this was the question. What we are doing as DESIS collaborates to make concrete the sense of environmental urgency that we all should feel today. This was the question. What we as DESIS are doing. regarding social innovation for the environment and the environmental aspect of this. And this led me to reframe this question as a coordinator and looking all the time the network at a upper level, right? We are a network, our dots, what is going on? So how could we reframe the question? And I reframe it that to say, what a network of design labs on higher education institutions could make in this effort. And this reflections led me to say, okay, we have a lot of initiatives with professors, teachers, we have philosophy talks, we have thematic clusters, thematic areas. We are working a lot connecting teachers, and with teachers, we are also connecting students. But students are being like a dormant part of the DESIS network, and students are a powerful and important drive for change. That was my contribution to the conversation. It was written a year ago, and since then we are here in coordination working in many ways to think how could we increase the participation of students in DESIS. Some of your speeches before me talk about students. So students are there, students, so also Relitza, also Lisa, explicitly talk about that. So how we could, this is a kind of question, how and why, and many of you talk about how design is important. Anna have just talked about that, how design is important thing for driving change. So is this a simple sentence? Students, how can we connect them between themselves, how we can support them, and how they can be actively actors of this change. And I think that in DESIS, it could be a kind of very important thing to make many aspects you have said embedded in this transformational change we would like to see in our society. So this DESIS student things could be related with specific movements, or could students do themselves some kind of specific actions inside DESIS? So there are many perspectives. And one of the questions is, who are DESIS students? Who are they? Where they are? Our DESIS labs have students or not? How we as teachers, professors, researchers connect with them to make changes, and to how the knowledge of DESIS arrive to them, and how we learn from them to DESIS. Also, how can we how can we support them to autonomous actions? Because when they feel something is meaningful, they are a powerful drive for change. And for sure, at least all students I speak here in Rio de Janeiro, and the students that is in DESIS team, you know, Ingrid, Mateus, you interact with them, they are helping me, we are together on doing that. And they all have environmental concerns. They're there. And SDGs, they talk about SDGs a lot. And so the main question for me in this conversation, and I will close here, is how can we give the floor also to them? And one of ideas is to promote and create one kind of sub-network in DESIS, that is DESIS students. So with specific activities to make it happen. And one of the first steps is being to know them. And to know them, Ingrid, that is here, Ingrid Bico, that is from our DESIS lab, and Mateus are interviewing, and you have received some mails about that. We need to know them, and also to learn with them, because yes, they have a lot of things to tell us, to teach us how we can build on this network. So this is so I think that it could be part of our manifesto, acknowledgement of their role and how this knowledge from DESIS could flow to them and from them to DESIS. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Carla. I think we have managed to keep the time, even if we are like 30 minutes late, but we can just get, because I think we are all tired of Zoom meetings, but this is very, very interesting, our discussion here, and I think we should take the opportunity to discuss a little bit. So thank you all for your contributions. We will now continue with the discussion using the whiteboard functionality of Zoom, and we will invite you to interact with it. So we have previously, as I said before, asked the speakers for keywords regarding their interventions, and we organized them in order to have like an overview of relevant concepts for the discussion towards the DESIS Manifesto construction. So I think we are seeing the whiteboard now, where we have wrote the keywords according to the order of presentation. And the idea is to interact with that. So if you go to the visualize option tab on the top of the screen, you can select the option annotate. So you can leave a stamp. And we challenge you to select the 3 most relevant keywords with a star stamp, for instance. For instance, looking to all the intervention and keywords, there are some common concepts that I think they are obviously almost like the need for change, the radical thinking, the community, the notion of place as digital or physical, education for design education or design as educator for the community and civil society, the change from human-centered design to life-centered design or nature-centered design. So if you, I don't know, because I'm not seeing, okay, you are interacting with that. So the idea of having this whiteboard, if you want to write also a keyword that you think it might help us drafting the DESIS Manifesto for September, it will be great also. So if you think there are some keywords that are not represented here, please, okay, if you want to write in the chat, there are some people writing in the chat. If you want to put, Carla has already talked about Mateus and Ingrid that are helping Carla. I have 2 people helping me also organizing this webinar beside Mateus, Carla and Ingrid. That was Ana Afonso and Gisela Pinheiro. So they are helping and they are putting the Kisa is suggesting some keywords, which is quite interesting. So there is someone writing social justice, right? So the idea that I can give like 5 minutes before Ezio makes the final remarks and concluding. If you want to ask some questions, it could be also. Is there anyone that wants to? Or do you prefer to stamp and continue interacting with our whiteboard? I see that the idea of thinking radical enough, it was a keyword from Nicola Morelli. It's having a lot. In fact, we need to think radical enough. Anyone that wants to intervene to talk with us? Okay. So Ezio, do you want to say something, or Carla? Ezio, Carla, I don't know.
Yes, I think that maybe I don't know how people are in a hurry, but if maybe we can close the main section and have a time to talk. And if someone have a precise time to leave, they can leave, or maybe a small group can continue. I don't know, but I feel the will to discuss also. I think that it's very interesting, this whiteboard, because it's a quick way to have some discussions. But if you have time, I think that will be great to have 15 minutes or to really have people here, give the word to people, maybe around these keywords, or
yeah, if you want to raise your hand or even unmute your micro.
Hi, everyone. Can you hear me?
Hey, good morning.
You made it.
Good morning. I'm very, very inarticulate early in the morning, so thank you for listening to my pre-recorded talk. I think that there's just such a tremendous value in this exercise, in simply just regrounding ourselves in our purpose, and as Ezio said, in kind of reminding ourselves that we've done very good things, but we need to constantly refocus on what our priorities are. And I feel that this entire conversation has started to do that. When I see the keywords, I can't dislike any of them. And of course, there's going to be some that are missing, but the danger of them is they start to feel very general. And what I really enjoyed about the beginning of our talk is how we were starting to connect on the core issues of the work that we are doing and the work that we want to do. So thank you, everybody. Super morning.
It was great that you could join us, Louise.
I can say something, but it's not the final remarks, because I hope that maybe somebody else will intervene afterwards. And maybe you, Teresa, can finish also saying how we want to manage the next step of this making of this manifesto. So it's my very personal intervention. It's not a final remark with all rhetoric of the final remark. And I read here social justice, and I cannot not to say something about that. I totally agree that that to be written, and written so big, and also written a little bit transversal to everything. Because in some way, I think that all of us, I'm sure, are moved from this idea of social justice. So maybe the fact that it's not a specific term, I don't know why, it could be, but it has not been, so it's been good to tell it. And I'm sure that the overall motivation of what I call the first wave of social innovation has been also a kind of social justice. Maybe as it has been with the environment, that everything has been also moved for ecological reason, but sometimes was not so clear. So when we have to refocus or to reshape our priority today, we have to be sure that whatever we do, also what is a continuation of what has been the first wave of social innovation, should make more clear how it is working also for social justice and also for ecological sustainability. And yes, but I think that the very new thing is if we are facing, or maybe we are facing, a new wave of social innovation. So you know, it has been discussed and studied a lot how it happened, the first wave of social innovation 15 years ago. And it was the combination of different kinds of sensitivity, because this is the way in which social innovation happens, and social innovation in particular. Many of us, and myself in particular, I think that there are all the conditions now to imagine a new way of social innovation that is mainly driven by ecological motivation, and now also by the evidence of some social disaster and also now from the pandemic. So I think that being this is mainly a group of people that want to develop some design knowledge, working with others, but mainly our specific role is to develop some design knowledge, in this case, dealing with social innovation. So maybe we have to try to detect the first example, the first cases, as we did 15 years ago, that we started to look around, and we are not the only one, but we have been in between the first one that started to look around to say, oh, look, what people is doing. And in some way, these characters of the first wave of social innovation, which helped it make it more clear. And now it's relatively very clear. Now, if there is a second wave that is more driven by sensitivity in terms of social justice and in terms of these ecological general concerns, we should really try to concentrate ourselves in detecting them. So without abandoning what we have done until now, but trying to look to what happened. And I'm very happy because I'm not enjoying this period. I'm not so happy, I have to say, but I'm happy in this very specific moment, listening to all of you. That, by the way, I think that's been very interesting to check where we are. So it's been a very, very short intervention, but enough to make us understand the constellation of preoccupation and ideas that are in our network. And this is, I think, very useful. But in any case, many of us, starting from Louise, but continuing with Miaosen, for instance, introducing a different way, a non-Western way to talk about how we can go to a more sensitive relationship with the other entities in our planet, and a more philosophical way by Virginia and some others. So this kind of reflection has to be developed mainly in practice for us, not only to be practical because we are reflexive on practice, but where there is already, I will say, a certain debate, academic debate, sometimes even too much academic debate in my very personal feeling, on what does it mean a design more than human or post-human. And this is a track that with Virginia, with the philosophy talk, we try to in some way consider, but the very original contribution that we can bring is if we really check around and see if something is happening and starting to work with something that is happening. So I think that in the manifesto, this idea should be clear, and should be clear in which way we can bring a contribution to this change in the paradigm. And going back to when I mentioned Miaosen intervention, of course, I am not ashamed to say that the beginning of DESIS was mainly Western people thinking and moving from where we are, because we cannot escape. So I am being socialized in a certain period, in a certain place, so I cannot be so diverse from what I am. But luckily, we have been capable to get in touch with people from Africa, from China, of course, from Asia, other parts of Asia, so from South America. And so now maybe we have the opportunity to better clarify that we are, maybe with some contradictions, but trying to be a network that is open to other point of view. And so the enrichment of this design knowledge that we want to promote can come from different background, different history, and different cultures. So also this one was not said in the previous way to present DESIS, and I think there should be in the new one. And finally, I think that what Carla said is very important. Of course, I'm sure, I know for all the people that we know, we mainly work with the students. So every project that we present includes the students. This is obvious. But in general, we, teacher, researcher, are the ones that speak. So I think, and I know that somebody did a very interesting experiment. I had a very interesting discussion with Louise some times ago, that they have some methodology to try to help the student to be much directly responsible for what they propose, the way in which they propose it. And I really think that this is, Carla said very well, there's a kind of dormant part, at least politically dormant, because they are active in our project, of course. And this, every one of us give all the credit to the students, but nevertheless, they are a kind of people making work that afterward we interpret and we bring around in the world. I think that we should do it, so we are not to, we, the researcher, the professor, not disappear, but we have to at least attempt to create space for a direct expression of the students, because the student per se has some energy, some potentiality. So in terms of how the network could change, I think that there's nothing in the structure, but create space for the young people. So conclusion, for me, what I keep from this discussion is we are mainly a network that work for creating knowledge, and we want to create knowledge through projects mainly. And afterward, we have the philosophy talk to enrich it, etc., but mainly through that. If we want to explore the possibility of a second wave of social innovation, we have to start really to look to the cases in which the flavor, in which this kind of attitude of being more less anthropocentric is more clear. And this, I think that we should commit it in the putting together, collecting, creating repository, because one of the things of social innovation and design for social innovation is not so much we inventing something, but looking around what happened in the society and try to put the light on this and make it more evident and in some way more transferable in other place. And then give space more than that. So become the design expressed by different culture, and hopefully to find a way to give more, obviously nobody said no, but probably there has been a kind of dominance of a certain line of thinking that comes from the European tradition, and we had to find a way to make the overall network more accessible and more open to other point of view. And yes, for me, this is more or less what I wanted to say, and thank you.
Thank you, Ezio. In fact, in the beginning, I have introduced a little bit what you were saying, that this is the initial discussion for the building of the manifesto, that we wanted to have a draft in September to share again with all the DESIS labs and to gather more contributions. I have also pointed out that DESIS can be seen as a network that promotes an arena where different cultural backgrounds can take a position. So increasing common denominators, even with a different position. And even that the content of the DESIS, they include different philosophical views. And we are really willing to build together the DESIS Manifesto based on these similarities and diversity. We had today also a very good geographic representation. We gathered people from all the continents, from Oceania, from North and South America, from Africa, from Europe, from Asia. So it was quite nice to hear also this cultural multitudinous of points of view. So I have to say, I think if someone wants to join the discussion, besides the people that were invited to contribute, to participate, I'm very glad to hear. I see that we have a lot of participants, probably most of the representatives from all the DESIS labs that are part of the network, but I don't know if someone wants to have a voice or let me wait just a little bit to see if someone steps forward. Oh, well, I see that Safwan is asking here, what about design and permaculture as provide alternative way of organizing in response to the Anthropocene? Do you want to take a voice, Safwan?
Yes, do you hear me?
Yeah.
Hello, everybody. I'm a student. I'm actually a PhD student of Sapienza University, and my PhD is about community-led design and community-centered design. I'm Tunisian, and in Tunisia now, like we had a revolution 10 years ago, and we noticed a huge movement and network of permaculture practitioners in Tunisia. That like the main idea is to provide an alternative to the extractivist and colonialist agri-food model in Tunisia. And permaculture is one of the ways. So now we are seeing the influence of several citizen academic initiatives in this way. In some references, like some researchers are making the linkage between design and permaculture. We are I'm speaking about Castel and Cousineau that esteem that systemic design approach and permaculture are really close. So in the south of Tunisia, that is confronted to the climate change really badly, there is a little oasis. People took the control of the oasis and created a local and pluralistic civil society with like they are learning participatory democracy, and they obliged actually the state to create a new legal framework for social and solidarity economy in Tunisia this year. So my focus would be on this kind of communities, because we are speaking about communities and to replicate models like Davide Fassi was speaking about articulating and replicating conditions. So my question is, I really don't know how to deal with that. Like, I know that there are many stakeholders in there, parliamentaries, politics, local community, agricultures, many people, and my main issue is how, as a designer, what would be my position in there, especially that the idea of design in Tunisia now, it's completely different from what we are speaking about now. That's it. I really don't know how to deal with the condition there. Things are moving. People are proactive. They are doing things, but the conception of design in Tunisia is we are speaking about furniture practically. So. So now speaking about permaculture and design is quite new, even for the design community. So I think you have much more experience than me in that sense, and I don't know how to, like, which method or with which modality I could interact with. I know you don't know the context, but maybe some advices. That's it. Thanks. Thank you.
Thank you. I know that also Kisa, she wants to say something. Kisa?
Oh, hey, I'm totally with him. I'm a design student at the Penny Stamp School of Art and Design. So we have a new DSS lab at UMich, at University of Michigan. in the United States in Ann Arbor, Michigan. And I'm centered in equity and access in food systems as an integrative designer. And so I'm pretty much with him as long as we understand that permaculture is a stolen knowledge based upon indigenous knowledge that was repackaged and sold as something different. But I believe in audiopoiesis. I believe in self-organizing systems. My studies lies in emancipatory design as well as food and farming. And I feel like that's a different space when you're talking about living systems, all living systems, and looking at it from that perspective. So I'm very interested as a graduate student to be part of whatever we're shaping when it comes from the student perspective.
Thank you, Kisa. I see that also Cyprus has raised his hand.
Hi. Yeah, it's Spiros, by the way, but that's nothing. First of all, I just want it's nothing. Problem with foreign names, right? Just first off, I just wanted to acknowledge and thank everyone, because I always say that for me, DESIS is it's not an academic network per se. It's a tribe. It's you know, like-minded people, and I, for one, feel the need every time to thank all of the. Is it rude to say senior members? I'm the wiser members. Let's go for the wiser members for you know, giving us a voice, and you know, we might as young people get angry at the older generations for giving us a you know, planet on the verge of destruction, but at the same time we have to appreciate the people that have been fighting long before we were even, you know, a thought. So first off, just thank you all for your work, and thank you all for, you know, giving us, the younger generation, also a room and a voice to build on your work, and to even disagree and say, you know, you're wrong there, Ezio. I don't look at it that way because I'm young and I'm radical, and of course you're not radical enough. That's the when, you know, at some point people will be saying that to me, and that's the way the world grows. But I just want to say I just appreciate this, how much this network works, and I appreciate the openness. And I have to also acknowledge that, like, in our small emerging, I think we had our birthday 1 year old DESIS lab. It wouldn't exist without the students who do the legwork, who do the hard stuff, the stuff that I wouldn't be able to do on my own, or I wouldn't even think, because even they're 18, I'm 30. We have another generational gap. And I just wanted to thank everyone for building this beautiful thing, and for letting the people who are young and coming in to participate. And I think that this whole emerging mess of ideas and ontologies and epistemologies and all these things, that we have this freedom to discuss and ponder and disagree and build on, and try to find these connections and do this meaningful research. We don't want to do research about how to sell more branding, plastic, useless stuff to people. We want design to be a tool for the democratization, the emancipation, the collectivizations. So I just wanted to say thank you for this manifesto. I think this city year that has been 2020, and I think it will keep on giving somehow, not fingers crossed. What's the opposite of fingers crossed? We do that in Greek. But I think that this year has really proven beyond the shadow of a doubt that we need radical, democratic, local, glocal, cosmopolitan globalism into our lives. We need to collaborate with everyone in the world, and at the same time take care of our own garden. So I will be excited and happy to share this journey with you for the foreseeable future, until we fix it or until everybody's dead. Either way, it's gonna happen. So yeah, thank you all, and keep fighting the good fight. That's all I have to say.
Thank you. I would say that besides the fact that we want to share with you the draft of this manifesto that we are trying to build collectively and collaboratively with all the members, probably we can have in October also another webinar to meet, because I think it's important to discuss these ideas. Carla, I'm not sure if there is another DESIS event in the meantime.
In our agenda, this is, you mean about this conversation?
No, we had the philosophy talks, and I'm not sure if there is another event in the meantime.
Okay. We have, the idea is we are, you mean about the DESIS network activities. So are you receiving our newsletters? Because we are, the DESIS newsletter are a very important communication tool for us. So please be aware if you are receiving, so you can stay connected with our events and activities, because sometimes people write to me like, I don't know what is happening, or so please follow the newsletter. They are carefully prepared and they anticipate all the events that will take place. Sometimes we send a personal mail to the coordinators because we would like to stress it, but we would like to even more promote this newsletter as a communication tool. So the idea is that we have some events related, and philosophical talks is something that also Virginia sent us to diffuse. So if you have some events, please let us know, because we can disseminate in our newsletter and in the communication channels. If your DESIS Lab is organizing something, and in our institute, we should do that. So please let us know. We will present it to you in the next ones. So Teresa, maybe we can tell people about the steps on the manifesto. So you know, we will perform some steps to have the manifesto written. Maybe you and Ezio can talk a little bit about that. We have made a plan on how to proceed from now.
Ezio, do you want to talk about that?
No, you can do it. You or Carla. Carla wrote the email.
The roadmap, yeah.
Everything.
Yeah, we have a roadmap. Guys, this is the first, you know, the conversations 2020 are online, all the contributions, of course, people here, this recording will be available. So we are also broadcast this in YouTube, and so you can come here and review it. So the next steps will be to make a first version, including all your contributions and all the things that you have written in this board. I mean, analyzing how can we make a first draft. Then this first draft will be sent to, it will be an open document for the coordinations and international coordination committee to collaborate. So please, it will be a document and we will keep track on changes you propose. And then we will wrap up the final version. And from here to November, before November, we hope we will have this test ready, because in November, for those that are members of DESIS and the DESIS community, we plan to have the annual assembly of DESIS on November. So our plan is before November to have the manifesto prepared, so we can probably have a conversation before the assembly. So if needed, or if something could be clarified, or if not, we will have this shared document. So the idea is that you can collaborate in these online documents that will be sent to DESIS coordinators, and then they can share with the members if they want to. So the precise dates, if you want, I can paste it here in the chat. Let me take this. Yes, but that's it. That we have a roadmap to follow to have the manifesto written. So I will paste it here if you want with the dates. Just a second. Yeah, this is the. Let me copy here. So you have this in the chat now. Oh yes, here. This is the July we are doing now. Well, we started in July. You can see in the, oh, sorry, I put this only for one person. Sorry, I need to put to all. So you can see the roadmap here now. In July 2019, we started with Conversations 2020. The following month, several contributions have been collected. So many of them are speakers here. The first webinar is now today. And we expect on September 2020 to have the manifesto online, the first draft for you to collaborate. On October, to have a new webinar like this, if needed, to be confirmed, if something we have the opportunity to do so, or if something the manifesto required it. And November, we would like to have the first version prepared before to be presented in the DESIS Assembly. Okay, so you will receive the exact date and coordination and links for this process, and you can have a role on it. Okay, that's the plan. So this is the second step, to be honest, because the first one is July, when we started these contributions. You have some questions? That's it?
I can add only one thing, not on the roadmap, but on what is the spirit of the manifesto. Given that we will ask to each one of you to contribute, so we means Carla, Teresa, and who want to participate, because you cannot do something 100 people, to draft something, trying to keep in account what we have listened, and to put it in a kind of document in which you can add something, and afterward we will have the final draft, and afterward we try to consolidate. But I would like to say something about how I see the rules of the game. So it has to be very clear. We are a network. So a network has to be in some way edgy and clear, but also open and welcoming to many different ways of thinking. So the manifesto probably cannot write the most advanced idea that me or Carla or Sipir or whoever can have, but we have to try to find what is our common denominator. So how to create a kind of platform that is the higher that is possible, but that is welcoming to all the people that is sincerely willing to do something in certain direction. I like to repeat this. Maybe it was obvious, maybe not, but it's different if we were a group, a small group of people, a kind of political group. In the traditional sense, we could probably write something much more precise. But in some way, a network should not do like this, should create an openness to a multiplicity. And therefore, I invite every one of you to intervene, but please keep in account. It's not it's to try to enter in the game and understand how can we manage to generate something that could be shareable by many different people willing to go in a certain direction. And therefore, it has to be clear a certain direction, and be clear where we are, and be clear some priority that has to be acceptable for, I think, for what we understood, all of us. And afterward, it has to be the starting point for maybe much more edgy position in which there could be also kind of debate in between, included in between us. So this is the program, and it's really very challenging. And well, thank you to participate in all the possible way. And finally, I leave again the floor to Teresa, that has been our organizer today, and maybe we can conclude.
Thank you, Ezio. Thank you all. I think all of us are really willing to share our experience and our last months in the lockdown and working with our students online without face-to-face. And we are really desiring to be together. And I think this is a great opportunity for us, for some DESIS labs that have more experience, that can do like a mentorship to other DESIS labs that are beginning and don't know how to proceed with some projects, like the case we heard from the PhD students, and even the youngest, as Spiros has said, the youngest DESIS labs. So the idea is that we can have this help between labs and creating the sense of the network, that we are sharing this common denominator, but we are very diverse. So it is great to share this diversity, this cultural diversity, and even thematic diversity that we develop in our DESIS lab with our students or our research or our communities. So that's great. I hope that we can meet again in October. Before that, we will share our draft of the DESIS Manifesto. If you want to give some inputs, please send us. If you have fresh ideas right now, you can email Carla with some inputs that we will put in the draft. We have already our whiteboard with some new fresh ideas. So thank you all. Some of you will have your summer holidays soon. Some of you will face the winter right now. I hope to see you all in October. Okay, that's great. Thank you. Ingrid, do you want to take a picture of us? I think Ingrid is asking to take a picture, yeah?
Yes, I took several prints along the way and asked everyone to turn their cameras on. It would be great for us to take the last print for the day. Just a minute. So nice to see everyone.
Smile.
I'll let you know when I, just a moment. I have to close the chat. 1, 2, 3. First one, please wait, because the Zoom divides the people in 2 pages, so I have to take for the other page now. Just a moment.
Smile again, just in case.
And the other one in 3, 2, 1. That's it. Thank you, everyone. You look all so beautiful. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.